This is 5th grade ELA text set 10. Facing the unknown. How do human beings adapt to difficult circumstances? Does anyone you know tell family stories? Why do you think some families repeat stories again and again? The Village That Vanished tells a story about a family in a village that were in grave danger. As I read, listen for many problems that they faced and the way they dealt with their fears and found solutions. The story is a folk tale written by Anne Griffithorne and illustrated by Kadir Nelson. Gather round, my people, gather around, and hear the voices of your ancestors in this tale of courage and of sacrifice. Young Abicanel waited still as a bird in the tall reeds that grew near the water's edge. A butterfly fluttered close by, but Abicanel, whose Yao name means listen, did not stir. She was listening to her mother's prayers. O my ancestors' spirits, O my grandmothers, O my father's sister's spirits, hear me now in our need. I hear your ancestors' voice singing in the grass, the trees, in the winds, the waters. I need your magic. Do not deny me now. Lend me and my children the secrecy of the crocodile below your waters. Oh, my ancestors' spirits, we need your magic now. Protect our village. Keep us free. Abicanel watched her mother rise to her feet. Her tall, strong body was silhouetted against the red ball of the setting sun. As it sank swiftly behind the line of the trees, she threw a flower offering into the twisting stream that flowed into the dark forest beyond. Then her mother, whose name Nijamel means upstanding, turned wearily home. Abicanel followed several yards behind, carefully placing her feet in her mother's footprints. She knew why Nemel was praying so hard. They might have to leave their homeland, and soon. The slavers were coming. These are violent men from the north, her mother had told her. They come riding in swiftly on horseback, shooting their long guns, capturing unarmed farmers as they go. And Abicanel had heard that sometimes they took Yao children, too. But why do they pick on us? She had asked. We are a strong people and hard-working, Nemal had answered passionately. They want to sell our labor. Our people are put in chains and sold into slavery to foreign masters. It was known that if slavers came, they would begin by capturing those out hunting alone or on guard far beyond the villages. Then they could enter the village itself, and there would be no one who could oppose them. So far, Nemal had added, holding Abicanel close, our own village has escaped, because it is surrounded by forests, but slavers will find it soon enough. What can we do now? Abicanel asked. I have a plan. If only the rest of our village will listen. Now Abicanel wished she knew how to pray like her mother, to help give her strength and ideas that could save their village. When Abicanel and Nemal returned, the villagers had gathered together inside the circle of 7 huts that made up Yao. A lookout had just brought the news that slavers had captured people from the nearby villages. No one but he was left. He said to warn Yao, for Yao's young hunters and distant guards must have been captured as well. Io, one elder trembled. Our strong young men groan and no one to defend us. What are we to do? The villagers cried, looking about. Abicanel saw that they were all just women and children, boys and old men. It was then that Nemal spoke up. I have a plan. May I speak? Aye, the older elder said, waving her on. She stepped forward, tall and straight. We just retreat, disappear like smoke, she said with quiet force. What are you saying, Nemal? We are not magicians to disappear in a puff of smoke. Do not joke at such a time. I mean we must go into the woods, Nemal explained, and destroying all traces of our village so that the slavers will not know we ever lived here. Then they will not follow us, not across the river, not even into the deep forest, and, she ended firmly, we must live there until they pass. Nemal's plan is to disappear like smoke. How does smoke disappear? Think about that as you listen to the story. Then Abicanel's grandmother Chimwal, whose name means stone, and who had remained as silent as one, spoke up. Yes, to protect our children you must go swiftly, and soon. And so it came about that all the families agreed to Namal's plan and prepared to leave. They would take only what they could wear and carry. But when the villagers came around to help Chimal, the eldest of the elders, she raised her voice once more. I am too slow and old to leave my home. I will remain with my house and our ancestors. The slavers will not take me. Am I not too old and mean? Is it not said the crocodile will not eat old wrinkled adder snake? No amount of arguments would move old Chamois, for her nature was truly stone. Many tried to convince her, but to all these warnings she cackled. I will tell them I am a witch. They will be so afraid of my magic powers that they will leave this old woman alone. Yes, the villagers decided it would happen like that. To the slavers it would seem old Chamois was just a hermit, living in a little hut deep in the forest. So the villagers were agreed. Then one puzzled person called out, in order to follow Namal's plan, we must burn our village. But such a fire would burn Chamois' hut down too. What will we do now? A scared child asked. Hearing this, Namal knew she had not spoken clearly before. We must disappear like smoke, but not like real smoke from fires. That would attract the slavers' attention from afar. But how then? The most anxious elder asked. I have thought of the way, Namal answered, smiling. So, it's not like real smoke from fires. What do you think she means? Each family will have to take part its own hut quickly, stick by stick, stone by stone, and bury it, or scatter it in the woods. Many villagers gasped, and one sensible woman suggested, we still save some house poles to use as walking sticks. Then another one said, or to use as tent sticks for our stay in the woods, till only the hut of old Chamois remains, said the oldest man, clapping his hands for them to get to work. All the women and the strong young girls quickly packed up their great cooking pots, too heavy for the long trek into the woods, and filled them with their most precious things. Then they buried them. One day they would dig them up again. And the old men and the young boys took the huts apart, stick by stick, stone by stone, until it was empty space where they had once stood. Then everywhere began to clear and rake the area, making it look as if the ground were tilled only for Chamois' corn. Soon it seemed Chamois' hut had always stood alone like that, surrounded only by her vegetable garden. Some corn rose. The people stood back then, leaning on their hoes, their tears wetting the soil, where their homes had rested as the smell of freshly turned earth rose about them. But now was Abigail and Namal's time to weep and say goodbye. Remaining firm, Chamois embraced them each in turn, saying, only, I will stay here with the ancestors, and we will greet you together when you return. May that day be soon, whispered Abigail and her mother. Namal bowing before Chamois, they left her and joined the waiting villagers. So do you think it was wise of Chamois to stay? Alright, then the people of Yao walked away toward the forest, full of sorrow to be leaving the place where they all had been born. Looking back, they saw old Chamois in her doorway, sitting as still and silent as a stone. Walking single file, the villagers traveled along a path that led to the distant forest, but the wide, quick-running river blocked their way. We must cross the river to get to the deeper forest, spoke an elder. But how? They chattered all at once. We farmers do not swim. We have no boats. The river here is too deep and the current too swift to cross. The tribe stood there, defeated by the river, but then the tallest children ran ahead along its shore, trying to find a narrow, shallow stretch of water where perhaps they could all cross in safety. Akanah, being the swiftest, quickly outran the rest. She flew directly toward the place where she had waited during her mother's prayer. When she got there, Akanah saw that the river was narrower, but she could not tell whether it was shallow as well. She must test it, but how? She could not swim. It was then that Abigail thought, are we not still in the same ancient woods where every living thing can be inhabited by a loving ancestor? She thought of her mother's prayer. How did it go? Could she pray too? The words came flowing through her as she chanted softly. "O ancestor spirits, O my mother, O my father, O my brother, sister spirits, hear me now in our need. Do not deny me now. I need your magic." Wasn't there a line about water? Ah, yes, Abigail recalled it now. The secrecy of the crocodile below your waters. Oh, my ancestor spirits, we need your magic now. Abigail stopped and listened carefully, hoping for some answer to her prayer. Then she began to feel a coolness upon her cheeks. She heard a stirring. Leaves trembled in a wind that seemed to be coming from within the forest around her. The surface of the river, whipped by the wind, was beginning to shape into little waves. They lapped up against round stones that were appearing just above the water. Soon a row of stones running all the way to the opposite shore was revealed. Was the stone path really there, or was it only Abigail's dream? She was afraid it would sink out of sight. So the author asked a question. Was the stone path really there, or was it only Abigail's dream? What do you think? Trying to be at least as brave as her grandmother, Abigail put one bare foot upon a slippery, bold, but solid stone, and then put the other foot upon the next, and the next, more and more bravely, until she was dancing across the river. When Abigail reached the last stone, she called back, "Come, I have found it. There is a path across the water." By this time the rest of the people had caught up, only to see Abigail standing out upon the water. "Magic!" they all exclaimed. Even her mother. They were afraid Abigail would suddenly drop out of sight into the rushing waters and drown. "See!" Abigail laughed out loud. "It's the stones beneath the water. They run all the way across." Then she danced her way back and forth and back again. "See," she repeated from the other shore. "It is safe. Come." The people gathered at the edge of the river, but they were still too timid to trust themselves to the swirling waters. Lacking faith, they saw no stones. Seeing this, the ancestral spirits ceased blowing upon the waters. Were these their children? So, lacking faith, they saw no stones. What might that mean? Then Yamal, the upstanding spoke of once again, scalding. "Have we no shame at all? Are we too afraid to follow? Does it take the sacrifice of an old woman and the bravery of a small child to teach us how to behave? Let us go over now, before our foolish fear loses both our tribe and our future." Saying so, Abigail, mother, put one foot into the water, then another, determined to find the stones because she believed in her daughter's courage. And the ancestor spirits blew mightily once more, revealing to Namal each and every stone beneath the rippling water. Shamed by their own cowardice and lack of faith, the people began to follow one at a time, the old women lifting their skirts, the old men poking their staffs before them, the children squealing and slipping from stone to stone until the entire population of Yao had crossed over. Then they all came to Abigail and wondered, "How did you find the path in the water?" "Like my mother before me," Abigail answered, looking at them all. "I prayed to the ancestor spirits, and they showed me the way." Hearing this, my mother hugged her brave daughter to her breast. Once Abigail and her people had left the river, they settled deep in the woods, quickly making simple shelters under the trees for food. The women and small children scattered about, picking berries from the bushes and nuts from the trees. The old men and boys hunting, catching small animals and fish from the streams. And so it went. They knew they would survive, but had Chawal survived as well?